The most interesting part about our technology is that it is our technology. A lot of real estate companies have opted to outsource their technology, various reasons, and I think over a period of years of our system being in operation since the mid-80s as a PC-based platform, and since the early 2000s as a web-based platform, is keeping ahead of the curve, staying ahead of the curve, and it's incredibly difficult to do something like that. From my point of view, that keeping ahead of the curve is absolutely essential. And if I want to make changes in my organisation, if I wanted to make sure that there are things going on there that I need to implement as a national organisation or regional organisation, I can do that. Trying to do that with technology you don't own, trying to get franchise owners, salespeople, property managers, anybody involved in the industry, giving you advice on how to improve your system, all goes out the door when the technology is not yours. It becomes incredibly difficult to grow that into a living, breathing organism that can continually keep you ahead of the curve rather than be concerned about having to stay ahead of the curve. Well, there always is a danger of more stock being available than the demand. That's always a danger. That always moderates prices. And with a number of properties coming out of the ground still, and a lot of properties that have been sold off the plan that probably haven't even started yet, they do run a risk. We did talk about this very heavily last year. In some areas it can be quite a substantial risk. In great strong capital cities the risk is probably reduced, but the reality is there are more and more properties coming on the market in terms of established homes as well as newer properties, and the demand for those properties is tapering off. Now, if that occurs and then you start to get the more worrying concerns, which are valuations meeting the expectation of the contract price down the track. Now, we've been through this before, and there are a significant number of valuers that suffered through this process, that were taken to task for their valuations, when in reality they were just working with where the market was. And if something changed, which it did for them some time ago, then all of a sudden people get a little bit frightened. They're a bit concerned about settling. That some of them would rather just lose their deposit and walk away and be sued or find a way out than to go ahead with purchasing an investment property. There will be people out there that have put deposits on 2 or 3 properties, and they're not major investors. They're, mums and dads who are starting out, and there will be a few of them, and they're going to have to sit there and question whether or not they can come up with the extra cash if the valuations don't meet the contract price that the properties were sold at. That's the greatest risk. The access to finance nowadays is certainly a simpler process than it used to be going back, and I'd hate to go back to where it was, where allocations were given by banks to lawyers, and lawyers would then have a relationship with real estate practitioners, and then that allocation, if it dried up, you had nowhere to go. Lending on real estate has become a very safe haven for quite a long time, particularly in this country, because people have been trying to compare Australia to what happened in the US, and we understand completely that that's not going to be the case. That's not going to work the same way because our lending structures are different. So I don't know that the finance side of it is going to be our major issue. I think there's going to be plenty of available funds out there, whether it's the superannuation funds that are not going to make the money that they'd like to make elsewhere. They're going to go back into the safe haven of residential real estate. And I say residential real estate because it's proven itself over the years. Commercial real estate in itself, or industrial, or investing in construction and development, which some banks won't even lend on, and if that doesn't give you an indication, then I don't know what does give you an indication. But in basic mum and dad residential housing, where people stand to lose where they live, that's always been the safest risk. And I think there'll always be a substantial amount of money around. Can I go back on a point that we talked about, though, with regards to construction and new properties? Mm-hmm. And off the plan sales. If somebody buys a property, and if they exchange contracts, and if the Labor government get into power, and if negative gearing is removed, even though that's a brand new property, has it not already been sold because a contract's exchanged? Does that then therefore mean that there's the potential that that's no longer a new property that they can sell off the plan? And could that be a future problem? I'm not sure. I'm not sure of the legal side of it, but just looking at it from the outside, that concerns me as well. Well, one of the biggest mistakes I made was trying to do too many open for inspections on a Saturday, for example, and you're moving from one place to the next, and if you think that the vendors are not sitting across the road in their friend's house having a cup of coffee watching you work, you're poorly mistaken. And if you turn up late and then you're rushing off because you've got to go to the next property, and all you're doing is opening up a property for inspection, which is what I saw on the weekend, a person standing at the front taking somebody's name, taking my son's name, for example, and I said to my son, you probably won't get a call back, which is a really sad indictment on our industry. But as people flowed through that open for inspection home, and there would have been, maybe 15 to 20 individual people went through, not once did I see the agent engage anybody. And this is my greatest concern about open for inspections. It's my greatest concern about real estate people, having people walk through the home and not talking to them at all, doing everything they can to avoid conversation with somebody. If I could give one bit of advice to real estate practitioners is do take a walk through the home, do focus on people who are giving you the right signs and spend some time with them. If the worst thing you could do at an open inspection is have a face-to-face conversation with one couple in the home, you've probably done more than most real estate agents will do.